They're still operating the way they did 20 years ago.
Okay, let's go.
Okay.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to Books and Friends. This is the Books and Friends TV. I'm Debbie Shalpi. Great to have you here. Great to have you on board. Welcome on board for another super special episode of the Books and Friends TV, for another super special live and exclusive conversation. I'm here with the number one ever, the pioneer, the godfather, the first person that comes to my mind, to your mind, when it comes to content marketing, the best-selling author of Epic Content Marketing and Content Inc., super entrepreneur, super keynote speaker, super startupper, a super knowledge sharing expert. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Mr. Joe Pulizzi, everybody.
Wow, I need to take you with me everywhere I go. This is fantastic. I don't know what you've been drinking this morning, but I want some of it.
Thanks to you, Joe. It is an absolute pleasure. It is an absolute honor to meet. I have you here, been following everything you have done when it comes to content marketing, and thanks to you, because of you, I've been able to learn how to structure everything, how to structure anything when it comes to designing and implementing content marketing strategy. I'm very, very thankful and grateful to you for this.
Thank you very much. I'm honored. Thank you.
So together with you today, we're going to have a Q&A on all the things content marketing, and in particular on the latest content marketing trends. We're going to have a Q&A, a conversation with all our participants and followers, with the audience of the Books and Friends audience. And as well as we will get more about also about your book, because now it's going to be out in a couple of weeks, in a couple of days. Mm-hmm. So the new updated version of Content Inc., this 6-step model, 6-step process to get content marketing done properly and effectively. And I'm so excited to share with all our listeners and participants that this book is already available on Amazon. You can just pre-order that, but in a few weeks you will get out. You will find that you can buy that, but above all, you will use that. So before getting started, Joe, I'd like to share a couple of ways to get in touch with us during the Q&A. So #Books and Friends, join the conversation, share your thoughts, comments, curiosities, bring your questions. Joe Pulizzi is here with us to answer all the questions and get back to all your reflections on all the things content marketing. I'd like to start, we can start with the Q&A, Joe. I'd like to start with this. I'd like to ask you this stuff. I'd like to get your thoughts on this. So since the pandemic has started, the world of marketing has completely changed and been transformed. Some people say it's been transformed irreversibly. So we will never get back. We will never there will never be a turning back to this to this. So the marketing is going to be a digital marketing. It's going to be digital marketing. It's going to be content marketing. It's going to be e-commerce. Based on the fact that, based on your experience, you are not only the pioneer of content marketing, but you are also a great entrepreneur, a super marketing expert. What's your take on that? Is that true? We're gonna have just digital marketing in the next months. Hopefully, by wishing that this pandemic will, of course, we're going to go away, or is just a moment, a temporary situation?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, you mentioned e-commerce. I mean, we've seen 10 years of growth in the last year in e-commerce. So things are obviously changing. Do I think it's digital only? No, I think it's digital first. I mean, it's been digital first for years, so that's not a new thing. But let's just say you had an entrepreneur out there that wanted to do something different and start a quarterly print magazine. Is that still a possibility? Absolutely, it is. You mean you're seeing new magazine launches all over the place. But if you're asking me where the most potential is, it's obviously online. That's not going to change. But you and I were talking before the show. change in marketing takes a long, long time. You've got people that were educated in marketing, they started this direction, and a lot of them don't know anything about content marketing. It's a new muscle in the organization. So content marketing isn't going to be the only marketing, but I feel the most innovative companies out there are going to be building audiences. It feels like a land grab right now, especially with the way the pandemic has sped things up. So like, in back in the day that we were all, you had the gold rush or a land rush, you have, I would call an audience rush right now. You've got a limited time allocated, people have allocated that they can spend their time. So what are we going to do? Well, let's build audiences out of those. Let's form relationships. There's a lot of companies that don't know how to do that. So you've got a lot of have and have nots going on right now.
So I totally agree with you. We will see what's gonna happen, and hopefully we hope and pray to get out from this pandemic. But for sure,
For sure,
it's gonna have an impact on how the way people will get decisions, their consumption behaviors, and the use of internet for sure is now, universal. So everyone knows how to do that.
well, I think to answer for your point, we're all consumers, right? Even on the business side, marketers, we consume, so we understand. We're getting our information from Twitter, from Facebook, from Google. So from that standpoint, it makes it easier as a marketer to go forward. The problem is distraction in a lot of cases, where you've got marketers that want to do everything at one time, and as you know, that is a terrible recipe for success. You really have to focus on being great at one thing. You don't build audiences by being on 7 channels and doing mediocre, inconsistent content promotion on those channels. It just doesn't work.
Totally agree with you. I do agree with you on this. And of course, the pandemic, Joe, has changed the way a little bit organization, where they are, small, medium, large size organization, or startups, or whatever, has changed the way they do content marketing, right? So I like to ask you, how can we get it right? How can we do content marketing today? How to correctly design, implement a content marketing strategy today? And how, as the teams evolve in respect to the past, so content marketing is today, compared to the content marketing of 10 to 15 years ago, completely different stuff. But I would like to ask you how this, as this pandemic impacted the way we do content marketing.
Well, I'd like to say all wonderful and positive things, but I think what's happened is because marketers can, they do, and they shouldn't. So what we've seen is a move for what I would call over diversification, or diversification too soon. So what will happen is somebody will get an idea and say, okay, we want to build an audience, or we want to create content around this topic. We're going to focus and we're going to deliver it on YouTube. We're going to do webinars. We're going to do a podcast. We're going to do a blog. We're going to do an email newsletter. And right away, you failed. If you look at the history of how media companies are built, and this is where we can take from history, even though everything's changed. Media companies, the greatest media companies in the world, built on one channel to one audience to one content differentiation area, what we call a content tilt. That has not changed. The channels have changed, the mediums have changed, but how we go about doing it. So when I go into a small, medium size, or large company, already they're on all these channels, they feel overwhelmed, they're doing so much content, and they're not making an impact. What I would say, they become jack of all trades, or master of none, if you will, because they're just like, oh, okay, we've got to be everywhere. So the first decision you have to make as a content marketer is, no, you don't have to be everywhere. What you want to do is you want to focus on being great for that particular audience and do one thing really well. So you might say, look, we're going to have the greatest podcast in this industry focusing on this particular content area. And then for this audience over here, we're going to do a webinar series. And for this audience over here, we're going to do this weekly YouTube show. We don't have to do everything at one time. And that's where, when you do a content audit, when I go in and do a content audit and I'll go talk to somebody, they expect me to come in and recommend things for them to do. Like they should be on Clubhouse, or they should do. And every time I'm saying, you have to kill some things. You have to stop doing some things, because there's no way you can be exceptional and great and build an audience by just throwing out content everywhere.
So keep it simple is the message, and once.
And it's hard to, right? Because we've got so many choices. You've got thousands of choices today, but you've got to remember that so do your consumers, so does your audience. And you have to be amazing to break through all the content clutter out there. So let's be amazing. Let's kill some things that you don't know why somebody started that Facebook page. You don't know why we've got 8 Twitter accounts. Let's kill some of these things and be great at 1 or 2 things.
Totally agree with you. And the spaces are very crowded, and the information overload is, is impressive. It's very massive, right? And probably we will see some social media, some social networks go down. I don't know. I'd like to get your thoughts about this, because it seems that even if we do content marketing on some platforms, the reach is going to be is always be is very low. We don't reach anyone. We are frustrated. We want to quit the project. We want to get back to do things that, as always has been doing and in a traditional offline. So the things that I like to ask you.
Sure.
Is this what are the companies that during this pandemic crisis period have I would say impressed or surprised you the most doing content marketing? Because clearly many companies have joined the arena, the digital arena during the pandemic.
I think what surprised me, and I'll talk about a couple names and some of the ones that we followed, but what has surprised me the most is the lack of focus. And I get it, and I'm not going to name the names of the negative ones, but the fact that they're literally all over the place and they're hiring editors and content producers, and the short-term thinking. You have to go into it with patience. You have to have an outlook of, look, this is going to take us 12 to 18 months to really build an audience. Now, granted, if you're listening to this right now and you want to do better marketing, you can do integrate a webinar program into your campaign. You can integrate ebooks into your campaign. You're not building an audience, but you're doing some things to create more likely buyers, or buyers are going to buy more. That's fine. The way that I like to look at it is, I want to see companies build audience and build assets. So if you build an audience that is loyal to you over a long period of time, you can monetize that audience over a long period of time, many, many different ways. And that's what I want to see, that kind of thing. So I love to look at 2 big examples. One business to business example is Arrow Electronics. They're probably the largest electronics media company out there, and they're not a media company. What did they do well? They just kept focusing on being great at what they were doing. They didn't do a lot of new things. They didn't add a lot of new platforms. They just kept producing great content to their audiences. Look on the consumer side. You've got Red Bull Media House, probably one of the greatest of all time, right? Well, when podcasts started to take off, Red Bull could have said, oh, we're going to jump into podcasts, but they made a specific decision not to. So what hopefully you're hearing out of this is, strategy is about saying no.
Yeah.
So I would like more marketers to say no to things so that you can say yes to 1 or 2 things and do it really well. So if you look at my friend Wally Koval created an Instagram site called Accidentally Wes Anderson. He just focused on Instagram. He put 1 Instagram post out every day, and he became a New York Times bestseller. That just by doing that on that one channel. If you look at one of the most popular podcasts out there is Joe Rogan Experience. What did Joe Rogan focus on? Just on the podcast and being great at that. And then just chose a couple channels, YouTube and I believe Twitter, to sort of focus on diversification. And then everything else, just forget about it. And I think more people need to do that going forward.
Totally agree with you. And you mentioned the Red Bull. Also, I remember years ago that I was impressed by the way Virgin was managing all their content marketing activities. Is a big media company, also Forrester Research. So when it comes to B2B, and they do, I remember they do very well about it. And we got already a question, Joe, and
Sure.
it's more or less to this. That's the reason why I
Okay.
wanted to have that. It's from Corrado Sturkey, corporate communication PR freelancer. Is an act manager. So it is about the approach to get when it comes to content marketing today, and probably it goes towards your thoughts and towards your way of thinking. So he's gonna have is asking this. So how to do content marketing today by thinking different in respect to the past, and avoid the befores to follow traditional models for action about it.
Well, I think the one thing that you have to remember is, thank you for the question. One thing you have to look at is start with the beginning, start with the strategy. So first of all, who is your audience, and how can you really be specific with who that audience is? More niche is better. If you go broad, you're going to have a very tough time figuring out how you can be the leading expert in something. So really, really focus. You can always come out and go wider, but let's really focus on something, a specific audience. Then you have to do what we talk about in the book is, what is your content tilt? What is that area of differentiation where you can actually break through all the content clutter out there? Does that mean you're on a platform that nobody else is on? Does that mean you're telling the story a little bit differently than everyone else? Does that mean you really fine tune the audience and nobody else is really focused on this particular part of the audience? So that is really key. So that's the one key, is what is that content tilt? Most people don't go that far and figure out their differentiation area. And I'll give you an example. Go type in cloud computing into Google. Type in cloud computing and you'll see Amazon and Salesforce and Oracle and IBM and all these other companies talking about cloud computing, and they're talking about it exactly the same way. I could take content off of Salesforce and put it on Amazon and you wouldn't even notice the difference. That's a problem. I don't even know why they're doing those types of things. So we want to make sure we're differentiated. And the second thing is, you have to be consistent. So if you decide that your rhythm, your frequency is weekly, let's say you're doing an email newsletter, then I want to see that every week at the same time on the same day they're sending out that email newsletter. Same for if you're putting a video in a Facebook group. Same if you're doing a YouTube video. Same if you're doing a daily or weekly podcast. And then we've got to consistently deliver over time. If you do that and you're patient, most people don't make it that far. Most content programs die in 3 to 6 months because they want immediate results, and they're not going to get immediate results.
So how long? This is a very key stuff, a key issue. So how long does it take, Joe, to get results when it comes to implementing content marketing programs? Because the people want to get results immediately. They want to go viral. These are the two things: they want to go viral. I don't want to go results in, like this. But I think that doesn't happen overnight, I think.
Well, look, I mean, it happens, right? I've seen in a couple weeks where something has gone viral, if you will, and taken off, but it rarely happens. If you're talking about how long it takes to build an audience where then you can monetize that audience, you're selling products and services, you're selling new forms of revenue, whatever it might be. The shortest time periods I've seen is about 9 months. If you're looking on average, it takes between 12 and 18 months. And by the way, you might be listening to this thinking, well, that's terrible. That takes too long. And you know what? That's because it's not an expense. You're building an asset. If you have the largest audience in your industry to that particular niche in 18 to 24 months, you've built an amazing asset that you can monetize and you could sell off if you want to. I mean, you could do a lot of different things with it. So you have to be patient with it. Again, it's different than content marketing where, I'm going to integrate an ebook into my marketing campaign or my advertising campaign. What I'm talking about is we build an opt-in audience, let's say through an email newsletter. And if you build an audience on YouTube, you want to move that over from rented land, social media's rented land, to something that you have more control over. Very important. I would say so 9 months to 18 months. And so this is why you have to, if you're in a medium sized or large organization, you have to set set expectations
Yeah.
to the people with the financial purse strings that it is going to take time, that this pilot project is going to take a while to get off the ground. But once you do well with the one pilot program, then they'll say, oh, I get it. I understand this takes time to build. And then you can do like Arrow Electronics did, and they have 52 different media properties, and they have 3 million opt-in electronics engineers as their audience, and they're actually profitable on a standalone basis from that audience, let alone what they're selling in additional products and services. So yes, patience is key. I can't stress that enough.
Right? It
Yeah.
takes longer than what we think, but hopefully we won't all want to go viral and boom immediately.
Yeah, I mean, if you, by the way, you don't have to do content marketing, right? I mean, if you want immediate impact, go interrupt as many people as possible. That's advertising.
Right.
Yeah, go throw up the billboards, go throw up the social ads, go
Yeah.
whatever. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just expensive, and you need to get an immediate hit. With content marketing, you don't have to get an immediate hit. I'll give you one really good example. I wrote a blog post, one of my first blog posts for Content Marketing Institute back in 2007. That blog post today still gets 1,000 people a day going to that one blog post 14 years later. And that is a lead generating machine for us.
Yeah.
So if you know of a piece of advertising that you put out in 2007 that is still delivering leads to you 14 years later, I don't know what that would be. So but it actually happens. It actually works that way.
It's a kind of evergreen content.
Yep.
That content, right?
Absolutely.
So, and that's one of the secrets of content marketing.
Yeah, I mean, and these things live forever. I mean, you're seeing a lot of sales happen right now with like musicians selling their content archives. These things are of so much value right now, and you've seen the rate of, I mean, the HubSpot marketing automation company just bought The Hustle, 1.5 million subscribers. I think they paid around $30 million US for that. So these things are starting to happen more and more because you've got marketers out there that are waking up saying, oh, if I have to be really, I'm not patient, so I don't know if we can do this. So let's just go out and buy something that's working. So that's happening as well.
Yeah, totally agree with you. I do agree with you with this, Joe. And let's look at some. We're getting a lot of questions and a lot of reflections, and I'm gonna get them in a couple of secs. I'd like to ask you this, Joe. By looking at the latest content marketing trends, so. What are the biggest challenges when it comes to B2C and B2B company in terms of content creation? Because, for example, I was wondering this. So the world of web is very visual environment. So, and some people say, you don't have to write too much. You don't have to go for text-based contents. But what's the truth? So,
Sure.
so we need to go for text-based content or for only visual based content?
No, there's opportunities in all of it, and I've seen it work in all of it. Like we mentioned in the start, there's still opportunities in print. Why is there an opportunity in print? Because so many organizations and media companies stop their print magazines and newsletters, so people still get the posts, and there's nothing good being sent. So is there an opportunity to get attention through that? Absolutely. Is there's still an opportunity in text? I love audio. I love podcasting right now because it's the only medium where you can somebody can truly multitask. They could be running or working or driving and commuting into work, and you can listen to something, unlike watching a video. A lot of clutter on the video side. Is there an opportunity there? Sure there is, if you differentiate enough. But so if you look at Content Marketing Institute, and this is from last year, Content Marketing Institute research says that the average medium-sized to enterprise company creates 14 to 16 different content initiatives, which means they're sending original tweets out. They have a Facebook group, they have a LinkedIn group, they do webinars, they do events, they do a digital magazine, blog, whatever. So 14 to 16. That number probably should be 2 to 3. So that's the issue we're having right now. We feel that we have to be everywhere and do everything. And so when we go in and we look at a company, they're mediocre at best in these, or it's failing, or they're wasting everyone's time. So what I like to recommend as a good, so you're like, what do I do about this? You need to get with your content team or your marketing team, and you need to do an audit of all the things that you're creating right now. So before somebody says, oh, let's go do something on Clubhouse, or let's go do a podcast, or let's do a YouTube thing, which takes a lot of resources, you have to look and see what you're doing. And I would do that content audit, and I would say, okay, why are we doing that newsletter? Is anybody paying attention to that? And you really need to look at, if you didn't produce your email newsletter anymore, if you didn't produce your Facebook page anymore, would your customers even care or notice? And they probably wouldn't. And that's one of the big problems.
Very, very interesting and very fascinating stuff. I'd like to ask you one question that we get from Antonio Susta, head of communication, Linde Gas Engineering. So it's about content, information overload, and future of content. So it's much more related to this also. Content strategy is definitely effective, but a certain point, if not already now, the quantity of contents produced will be so high that it will be impossible to even to pick up best ones. Some personalities are already unplugging from social media because it consumes too much time. So what could be the next future for contents, Joe?
Well, first of all, I love the question because I get it all the time, but we've had too much content as consumers since the creation of the printing press. There's always been too much. There was too much content 20 years ago, 10 years ago, yesterday. We all know the stories of, oh, there's just content overload. Well, there's only enough. You have 24 hours in a day. If somebody's going to engage in content media some kind, we know that they spend right now between 3 and 6 hours a day on whether they're watching television or social media or something like that. Now, the point is, can you as a marketer break through and become part of that 3 hours to 6 hours a day? That's all you have to focus on. You're competing. You're not competing with all the content in the world. You're competing with what that person needs to get a better job, to live a better life. If you're on the consumer side, get a better job if you're on the B2B side. So that's all you have to focus on. So that's where the opportunity is. And so I would just, to answer the question, just make it, we've talked about it, just go to a simple process with it. Just focus on one project, one pilot project to one audience, and do something amazing. Now, you might be saying, well, do I do video, or do I do audio, or do I do print, or whatever? Well, first of all, where are your customers hanging out at? I mean, do they, are they already on if you're going to, let's say, do a Clubhouse. I'm doing my book tour in May on Clubhouse. I have a lot of my audience on Clubhouse, so we're going to do that on Clubhouse. If no entrepreneurs were on Clubhouse, I wouldn't be on Clubhouse. So it's the same thing. Are you going to do a YouTube video? Is your audience even there? Is it even possible to get them there? Those are the types of things we want to think about. So I would just say, how do you become the leading expert in your niche? And that's the way you have to think about it. And that's because you can't just be an also ran and break through the clutter. You can't just be doing what your competition is doing. You have to be better. You have to be differentiated. You really, truly have to be special, or you're never going to break through. Like for an email newsletter, you might say, I get this question all the time because I love email newsletters. And they'll say, Joe, nobody reads email anymore. And I said, look at your own email behavior. I'm sure there's 1 or 2 or 3 emails per day that you definitely want to open because it helps you do your job better or gives you some information. They always said, oh yeah, there's always 1 or 2, or there's 3, or there's this one I love that I subscribe to. I'm like, well, be that one that your audience really has to subscribe to. And that's where you have to take it to a next level.
Okay. Talking of email marketing, Joe. So I'd like to ask you this. Do you believe that email marketing and all the world subscriptions today is dead, or still much alive, and why?
Well, you're talking to the wrong person. If you want the answer to be dead, you're talking to the wrong person, because I have been on the email train for 12 years now. I think ever since I started, I said email is number one, because it's not fully controlled, but it is the one medium where you actually have some control over versus social media. So for example, if I build my audience on YouTube, that's great. But at some point, that's not my audience. That's YouTube's audience. YouTube controls the algorithm there. And so I have to move that over to something I can control. And I like email. It's that one-to-one. It's that first party data that I have. Somebody has opted in and saying they want to get this. And of course, you've seen in the last 12 to 18 months with the boom of Substack and Twitter's review, you've seen email just take another step up. I mean, email seems to be, I don't know, it came out of nowhere. Nobody was talking about email. Now everyone's talking about email. So it's gotten a little bit crowded, but I still feel like if you could do it, if you could start with one thing, I would start with email. The problem is you don't have an audience there. You actually have to go out and find an audience. So what you're seeing is, you're like, I talked about Accidentally Wes Anderson before, the Instagram program. So they might start their audience on Instagram and they've got over 1 million followers on Instagram. And then they create exclusive content on a regular basis in email. So they get those people to move over from Instagram over into email. The same thing is happening with, if you have a YouTube channel or a podcast channel, then you need to move it over to email. So your email newsletter should always be your number one or number two subscription focus of any audience building program.
Very interesting stuff. Totally agree with you on this. And talking of Clubhouse, you mentioned the Clubhouse, and I know you like that.
I do like, yeah, I think Clubhouse is the thing. I do. I agree.
I'd like to ask you this stuff on Clubhouse. What's your take in general? So on this new social network is an emerging social network, right? And it has emerged with the pandemic, right? During the pandemic period. And the question is this: so will Clubhouse survive post COVID-19 pandemic?
I think first of all, Clubhouse, for people that don't know, is like social audio. So right now you can sign up on your iPhone and you can get the app, and it's almost like being at an event. People know who you are. You can't do it anonymously. They use real names, and you can see a list when you go into Clubhouse. You can see where your friends are at, and you can see, oh, hey, almost like going to a live event. Oh, here's this topic. Here's this topic. And you go in and you just start listening. And then if you have a question, you raise your hand and people can bring you to the stage and you can ask your question. I think that there's a place for this type of technology. Do I think Clubhouse will move long-term, be there long-term? I think Clubhouse will, because they have first mover advantage. Now, we know Twitter already came out with their product called Twitter Spaces. Facebook is working on a social audio program as well. So social audio is a thing. It's absolutely going to happen. Some people, as we do a Zoom call, some people are zoomed out. They don't want to do Zoom anymore. So you've got an audio. I know a lot of my friends that are on Clubhouse that they work out, they go running, they put it on, oh, I want to listen to this session. And instead of listening to a podcast, they might listen to something on Clubhouse. So there's something there. So let's just say if you're a content creator and you can create a club in Clubhouse that maybe nobody's created anything for manufacturing processes in the Far East. I don't know, right? But nobody's doing it. So you could come on there and you could put together, and again, it's just like any other content activity. You have to do a regular, so every Monday at 3:00 in the afternoon, you're going to do a Q&A with somebody, and you keep that, you want to keep that to be tuned in type of session. So people say, oh, it's 3:00 on Monday, I've got to go tune in. So I think it's absolutely going to be a thing. Of course, I was there earlier than most, probably because I had to figure this thing out. Is it a thing or not? And I absolutely think it's a thing that we can look at building an audience. And again, same thing. You build your audience on Clubhouse and you can move them over to email.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems that, is very divisive, right? And then maybe it's 80 don't love it, social network. And we got a message from Anna that says, she says, I hate Clubhouse because it's this idea of a club, but it's a positive by adding the positive emoticon, right? So she doesn't like the idea of being part of a club.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's fine. I mean, club, tribe, membership group, it's all,
Community,
I mean, yeah, whatever you want to call
everything
it.
is community. Everything is a tribe. Everything
That's
is
right. And by the way, so let's look at it this way. So let's say we've talked about Clubhouse. So
yeah,
how could you build a community that's text-based and not on Clubhouse?
yeah,
That's where you're seeing Discord. Discord is like the Slack for gamers. And it seems like everyone in the community space, at least here in the States, they're focused on building these Discord membership sites. So again, I don't care if you call it a club, to your point, community, tribe, whatever. How do you build these things that makes the most sense for your audience? It may not be Clubhouse, maybe it's Discord, maybe it's something else, but I like this focus on, hey, we need to build a community. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Sure, you need regular dissemination of content, but you also need a place where people can communicate. Maybe a Discord discussion group, a Slack discussion group, or something on Clubhouse might work as well.
Cool. We got many questions about Facebook, Joe, and we got also this question about web listening. This question is from Francesca Bellucci, marketing director at Seidel Machinery for Packaging Solutions. And she asks this: what's the role of web listening in implementing a successful content strategy?
Oh, I can't tell you how much I love this question, because I wish that marketers would do more listening than they would content creation. Most of the time what happens is when somebody gets an idea for a content program, there's very little listening involved. I like to see, oh, let's go. Is this area we're going to talk about? Is it a real problem? Is this a pain point of our customers? Does it keep them up at night? And I talk about this in the book, the idea of setting up listening posts. And this is what media companies do, by the way. We set up listening posts. I grew up in media over 20 years ago. That was one of the first things I learned is, where do you get your information so you know what content you need to create to solve their problems? So we used to do reader calls. We actually used to call up readers every week and figure out what their pain points are. Okay, I know that was the year 2000. So now we're in 2021. What are we going to do? Well, if you have your email list, you should do regular research surveys out to them to see if you can get that. You should be listening to hashtags on Twitter and Facebook. You should be listening to your audience in your LinkedIn group or on your LinkedIn individual channels and see what they're dealing with. So social media, the best use of any kind of social media is to listen. We actually know what our customers are going through. They're telling us firsthand, and we need to take that information, and that goes to the editorial team. So they should know firsthand what's going on with that. So I can't. So here's the learning from this. Before you produce any pieces of content, you should first set up your listening posts. So on an ongoing basis, the editorial team knows if they're actually solving the pain points of their audience. Great question.
Absolutely. If the people use the social media to get informed and interact with a brand, are corporate websites still an important tool when it comes to the content marketing mix of the company, whether it is a B2C or B2B company? Do they make sense today, corporate website? This is the question from Marco Siquito, internet company monster.
Marco, absolutely. Please keep your website. Please don't.
They are.
It was scary to be. This was probably like 8 years ago when Facebook was really taking off, and there were a lot of social media consultancies out there that were saying, you don't need a website anymore. You just need to be on Facebook.
Yeah.
So basically, what that's saying is that you don't need to own your real estate, online real estate. You should just rent.
Yeah.
Now there's a lot of benefits to renting, a lot of lower costs. You don't have to keep the upkeep going. Somebody else is putting in all the research and development to keep that product up and running, like a Facebook, like a Twitter, like a LinkedIn, like those. Great. But again, they could change the rules at any time. They could raise the rent on you. They could change their algorithms on you. So you have to have something where at the end of the day is yours and you control it and people go to it. I still think, even though blogs are not the hottest thing in the world, there still is a place for regular blogging on your channel that you have some control over. It doesn't mean you can't use social media to promote that information, but I get concerned. I could see a day where Facebook just changes their rules altogether and YouTube changes their rules. You're already seeing it with YouTube. If somebody subscribes to your YouTube channel, you would think that in their feed, they're going to for sure get your videos in their feed. No, that's not, because YouTube is going to show them in their feed whatever they want that's going to make them the most money. The same thing is going for Facebook. So you have to remember that they're not looking out for your best interest. They're looking out for your best interest, their shareholders' best interest, and they're looking at how to make more money, which God bless them. They're private companies. They should be doing that, but that doesn't mean that you have to give up. So yes, if you want to focus on other social channels, that's great. But at the end of the day, it should start in the middle with a website that is truly helpful, that answers the questions of your customers.
Totally agree. And it will never die. The website will never die. And I would like to.
Yeah, I mean, Cisco. I mean, I almost say so. I used to work with a company that put millions of dollars into their Google Plus page, and 2 years later, Google Plus said, "We're done." That could happen anywhere. It could happen on Clubhouse. It could happen anywhere. So you have to be prepared for that.
So dead or alive moment, Joe, I'd like to ask you, TikTok, dead or alive? To do content marketing.
Oh man. I would use it as a listening channel. If you're a marketer and you're targeting younger people, I would absolutely, but I don't know. You have to invest a lot to be great at TikTok. It's very hard to be authentic as a marketer on TikTok. Possible, yes.
You gotta dance on TikTok.
I would say spend some time. I think it was Francesca's question. Spend some time listening in that channel first, and then you can see if you want to create something.
Telegram.
I think that there's, again, I'm a big fan of that as a listening channel.
Listening channel.
Right? Yeah.
Let me check what I got, because Clubhouse already asked you that. So probably yes, is alive. Snapchat. Dead or alive?
If you focus on short 20-second consistent videos targeting the right audience, absolutely it can be something. But again, you have to be in it for the long term. It's not going to happen overnight.
Instagram.
I like Instagram. If you're focused on imagery, I would look to Instagram before probably YouTube and any other platform, and Facebook for that matter. I mean, though it's owned by Facebook. I think that if you say you're going to do daily, again, it's hard, daily video or daily images, pick one. Instagram can, if your audience is there and you can differentiate it.
Twitter, the bird.
Okay, well, of all the ones that you mentioned, Twitter, I believe, has the most potential, believe it or not, at least in the business world. Twitter is going to do a lot of things in the next year because they've made a decision to finally start making some money. So we've been hearing grumblings of super users or power users on Twitter, where if you have so many, you might have to pay a subscription if you have so many followers. You could build lots of different communities on Twitter depending on how it goes. Twitter is going to get very, very interesting. But again, what I like about Twitter is if you build an engaged audience, they don't mess with their algorithms as much as Facebook does. So I like the opportunity in Twitter. But again, it's got to be short. I mean, you're talking about regular posts. You're probably every hour you're posting something of interest. You're not linking out. Doesn't work as well as staying on the platform. So there's a lot of things to worry about with Twitter too.
YouTube.
Of course, I just did a bunch of case studies for Content Inc. focused on YouTube. YouTube can work. It takes 6 to 9 months to break through in a lot of cases to build enough audience to go. Has to be consistent. And by the way, the optimum YouTube video is not 2 minutes. The optimum YouTube video happens to be usually around 8 to 14 minutes. So think about that. You do not get snackable content on YouTube. YouTube is mid to long form content now. It's completely changed.
Cool. LinkedIn.
LinkedIn for business, where I've seen LinkedIn really take off, and I'm surprised, David. I didn't think this was going to be a thing, but LinkedIn newsletters have taken off. I've seen a lot of my friends and colleagues launch newsletters where LinkedIn is sending an email out. Don't use it as your primary email tool, but if you're targeting a specific audience, especially in a new industry sector, you could use email newsletters out through that platform in LinkedIn, and it's really working. I just talked to somebody the other day that said they're getting high open rates, and the subscription rates are going through the roof. So look at LinkedIn email newsletters right now.
We got many questions, many points of view, Joe. I'm gonna read some of them. So Giacomo Massardo says this: in your opinion, Joe, as of now, is there any channel where you must stay, even at the cost of a bad touch point?
No, there's nothing that you must do except for have your own website presence.
Yeah.
If I'm starting fresh today, especially in Europe, you've got all of the GDPR compliances and email that you've got, or GDPR. You have to make sure that I would have a good website and some kind of email offering. Yeah. Those are the only two I have to have. Then you can choose and say which social platforms you need to be on. But I'd say core website, email newsletter. Those are the two things I'm starting off with. Everything else is negotiable.
We got another question from Marco Siquito. It's very interesting. So cookies is about cookies issue and online ADV. So far, cookies have been the key to target remarket audience into the web. As they are going to expire soon, seems that we're going to buy them directly from Google. What's your take on this issue? What's going to happen? How are things going to evolve?
Well, online advertising revolved around third-party data and cookies, and now we're not going to have that anymore. So what do you rely on? You rely on first-party data and the data that you can get. So what does that lead to? Your own email newsletters. So I'm sorry, you go right back to your own email. And by the way, if you're thinking, so we've talked about, you've asked me the question about the pandemic and the growth in content marketing. And yes, it's a thing, but maybe the biggest thing in the growth of content marketing is the issue with all these cookies going away and third-party data not being able to use legally anymore. And so that means everyone needs to build their own audiences and have their own first-party data because you can't get it anywhere else. So.
Cool. Then we got a question from Monica. She says, hi, Davide. Hi, Joe. Many thanks for this inspiring discussion. My question is, how do you see the future of social media marketing? The future.
You know what? It's
might be short term or long term, medium term.
It's interesting. I look at, I have a long view when I look at what's happened with media. And when you and you say content marketing, all you're talking about is somebody is a media company. Yeah. And instead of content marketing is instead of monetizing it through ads, sponsorships, and subscriptions, you're monetizing it by selling more products and services. There's no real difference. So there's been, these boom of all these different channels, they're going to come and go. So we have to make the best decision on, for the long term, what's going to make the most sense. So I would say, yeah, build your platforms, your owned platforms first that we just talked about. And then if you feel you need to be on Twitter and LinkedIn or Twitter and Facebook, I would focus on being great at 2. You can't be great at 5 and 6 and 7 to one audience at the same time. Cut back, be great at 2, focus on those. If something doesn't work, if your hypothesis changes from a marketing standpoint, you can always say, look, I'm not doing LinkedIn anymore. I'm going to Clubhouse, or I'm not doing Twitter anymore. I'm going to try this Telegram, whatever it is, right? Yeah. So I would start there. Just be very, very simple with it. It's not rocket science. And start by focusing on less social and be really, really good at the social you're going to do and forget about the rest, or just consider them listening channels.
Cool. We have lots of questions, Joe. I'm gonna try to to read all these questions. So, which main features must have an excellent content?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Which main feature an excellent content has to have? So
What do you,
comes to content type creation, so content types, content creation.
oh,
How
which one do you have to have?
yeah, the characteristics of a great content. This is very generic, but
So yeah, I mean, okay. Here's the only way I can answer that. I just interviewed 100 different companies for the next version of Content Inc., and every one of them had a different content type and different platform. You can be successful doing anything. So that's where if you have expertise in your company around imagery,
yeah,
maybe you look at something like Instagram. If you have a lot of really good people that know how have radio voices and a really good audio, maybe you look at something like podcast. You can take your own expertise into account when you focus on what your audience needs. So it can be anything. I wish I could answer it and say you have to have text, but you don't. I know some people that started out with podcasts. I know some people that just started on a Facebook group and then they backed into their website or they backed into an email newsletter. There's no one way to do it.
okay. Why is this? Why content marketing tend to fail, Joe? Why content marketing programs tend to fail?
Oh, that's easy. First of all, in a large company, usually the expectations aren't set
Yeah.
with the financial people, and they don't understand what you're doing. If they're looking at regular marketing programs, they don't understand why we wouldn't be selling directly. Okay. Why wouldn't the content be about the product? So first of all, you have to set the expectations with your executive team as to why you're going to do that. And you gives you the runway to say, look, this is a project we're going to do for 9 to 12 months. And then we'll come back and we'll show you that we're doing something, but it takes a while. The other two things is you don't have a content tilt, which means your content truly isn't differentiated. You have to start with that. And the next one is you don't have any consistency. So those are the three things. Every company we go in, they either don't set proper expectations, they don't have a pure differentiation area, and they don't deliver consistently over time. That's it.
Documented strategy also.
Well, yeah, I mean that absolutely. When you start everything, you should document everything. And we talk about this in the book where you should start with an editorial mission statement. We call it the content mission statement. Before you create, you should probably go a couple months and build out your documented strategy before you create one piece of content. Who's the audience? How are you truly differentiated? What's your expertise area? How are you going to deliver it over time? What are the resources you're going to need internally to make this happen? What are you going to integrate with traditional marketing to make sure you promote it? How are you going to promote this out? Because again, you want to spend a good portion of your budget getting the content out there into people's hands or in their ears or whatever. So at least 50% of your upfront budget should go to content promotion, not just creation.
Talking of the successful content marketing, how important is involving employees, customers in the content creation and distribution process on a scale of 1 to 10?
Oh yeah, 11. I mean, the more you can. So first of all, your internal employees are your best ambassadors. Get those of them involved in some way. If they're part of the content creation process, have an editor or have somebody coordinate with those people so they don't have to create it all themselves. Let's say you wanted your engineers to write blog posts. Well, engineers aren't going to write blog posts. So, but maybe they'll spend an hour on the phone or do an interview with you or do a Q&A so that your writer or your editor can take that content and put it into a blog post or create a podcast out of it or something like that. So I would start there. And then the more that you can get your customer, if you could set up something like a customer panel for your content, that would be great. Could be 5 or 6 people and they would love it. You become they're your champions for your content product and you could reach out to them on a regular basis, just like you would an editorial board. If you can do that, that would be a great idea.
Cool. We got a message from Giorgio Gandellini. He says, thank you, Joe. I'm also appreciating your epic content marketing book. So,
oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So let's talk about a little bit of content marketing governance. What does it take to be a great content marketer or chief content marketing officer today? Because it's going to be probably a good job.
So you have to know equal parts about marketing and publishing, and most everyone knows about the marketing. Most of them come from the marketing side, but as the publisher, what you realize is the number one thing you have to focus on is the needs of the audience. Yeah. Where most of these programs break down is you've got the chief marketing officer or the chief content officer is focusing on selling stuff first. And I know as marketers, that's what we want to do because our job is to sell more stuff. But if you focus on that, you'll never get the audience because you have to focus on the audience first. So the first thing you got to do is build the audience, and then you can figure out how to sell stuff to them. Most people do it the other way around. So that's the key. Get somebody in that position that understands publishing. If you understand publishing, you understand that the audience's needs come first, and what we want to sell to them comes second.
Cool. Joe, talking of the organizational perspective, so do you think that company's organization will increase the size of their content marketing teams in the next 12 months?
Well, base answer would be yes. It's a growing area. It's still one of the fastest growing areas of internet marketing. A lot of people will decide to hire for that, and a lot of people will outsource. And that's the way it's always been. There's a lot of really good content marketing agencies out there that do a lot of great work. You have a lot of wonderful contractors out there that can help. I've seen both work. There's not one is not better than the other. Long term, there's probably a movement toward having more people inside the company, but I can make just as much of a case for having contractors and outside. And so whatever is your model in your organization, whatever's going to work, do that. You can hire people or you can outsource. Either one works.
Cool. And how technology is going to impact the world of content marketing, because now it's all about technology. The challenge, in my opinion, what's the future related to that?
I mean, the great thing is it's easier to create content than ever before. The tough part about it is that everyone can do this. I mean, you're competing, when I started writing on the internet 20 years ago, there weren't as many people creating content on the internet. Now I'm competing with independent entrepreneurs. I'm competing with agencies. I'm competing with large companies. They're all trying to target the same area. So that's the challenge. Technology makes it so much easier. I can literally be a content producer and have only a phone today and do really, really good stuff. So that's the opportunity. It's totally democratized content creation. And it's even the playing field where small players can do just as good or better work than large players. Not necessarily a money thing anymore.
Cool. So content team. This is going to be out. It's going to be, we are going to publish a new updated version with many new stuff inside. So tell us a little bit about this, Joe, and what we will find in it.
Yeah, so the Content Inc. model, I believe it is the model that any size company can use to build an audience. There's 7 steps now and not 6. I added a 7th step on how an enterprise can go big, do a Red Bull Media House type model. And I talked about how entrepreneurs can sell their business. I added a lot on mergers and acquisitions, and of course, updated all the platform stuff because a lot has changed in 6 years with all the platforms. So yeah, make sure if you're interested in buying it, get the 2nd edition. The 2nd edition has the orange cover. The one that you have in your hand is the 1st edition. So get the new
evergreen book, because if you buy it and read it now, you will never get wrong.
Thank you. So yeah, so it comes out formally in mid-May, but you can buy it right now and pre-order. And I'm working on the audiobook next week, and we're looking forward to it.
Cool, fantastic. We got another question, but I don't know. It's just,
I think we're gonna have to call that, since I have another presentation in 2 minutes. I think we're gonna have to call it there.
Let's just get to the point. So final greetings. The time flies, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's a great Q&A, great conversation with the one and only, the pioneer of content marketing, Mr. Joe Pulizzi. I officially great, and thank you, Joe, for being with us and for helping us getting more about content marketing. Again, it's been an absolute pleasure. We do look forward to your next video. It's going to be out in a couple of seconds. You can pre-order that on Amazon. And of course, it's published by McGrew Education. Books and Friends. We will back. We will be back soon with another super special Q&A with another super special guest order. Next Q&A will be on the themes of corporate social responsibility and with Sanjita Raldo on April 19. If you want, you can just visit booksandfriends.eu if you want to get updated about the next Q&As. How to get in touch with you, Joe, if someone wants to collaborate with you, whatever it is.
So so joepulizzi.com, PULIZZI.com, and then the new newsletter that's out is called The Tilt, THETILT.com, and that gets our newsletter there, and would love to touch base with anybody.
Cool. If you really enjoyed this episode of the Books
Thank
and
you.
Friends,
Thanks, everyone.
This, our YouTube channel. I will leave you with this quote: "Don't just own the content, own the audience." Mr. Joe Pulizzi. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Cheers.
Thank
Bye.
you. Cheers.
Bye from Books and Friends. Bye. Bye, Joe. Bye.